32,000 feet in the air, a plane shook so violently that passengers screamed in terror when suddenly the captain's trembling voice echoed through the cabin. "Is there any fighter pilot on board?" And while the world searched for a hero, every eye overlooked the quiet black woman sleeping in seat 14 amperes, the very woman who carried the power to save them all. Before I take you deeper into this story of humiliation, courage, and survival, what country are you watching from? Drop it on the comments. Also smash that subscribe button, turn on the bell, because what happens next will leave you breathless until the very end. Her name was Naomi Carter. To the world, she looked ordinary that day, a black woman traveling light, jacket zipped, hair neatly braided, carrying nothing but a simple backpack and a tired expression. But Naomi was never ordinary. She had spent 15 years in the military, trained as one of the few women, one of the even fewer black women to rise through the brutal ranks of fighter pilot school. She had flown combat missions, survived near-death encounters in foreign skies, and earned medals that gleamed inside a drawer at home but were rarely spoken of in public. Why? Because Naomi had long ago learned that no matter how much she achieved, there would always be eyes that doubted, lips that whispered, and hearts that refused to see her worth. That morning, she moved through the airport with the grace of someone used to eyes following her. At security, she was pulled aside for a random check. Even as others breezed through, she smiled politely, though her chest burned. At the gate, a man muttered about how she probably couldn't afford the flight. She ignored him, slid her ticket to the attendant, and walked onto the plane with dignity intact. But dignity is fragile in a world eager to break it. She found her seat in row 14, next to the window, tucked herself against the cool pane, and exhaled. The whispers faded. The stairs dimmed. The engines roared. For once, she allowed herself rest. Eyes closed, heartbeat steady, she drifted into the fragile comfort of sleep, unaware that the day would test her more brutally than any battlefield ever had. For the first hour, the flight was smooth. Drinks clinked on trays. Conversations hummed. Children giggled in hushed tones. Naomi slept deeply, carried by exhaustion and the steady thrum of engines. But the sky above is never guaranteed peace. It began with a shiver, a tremor of turbulence that drew a few nervous chuckles. Then it grew stronger. Seatbelts clicked. Flight attendants steadied themselves on carts. A baby's cry pierced the air. The tremor became a quake, the kind that makes the heart grip the ribs. Overhead compartments rattled, spilling faint sounds of shifting luggage. Naomi stirred, frowned in her sleep, but did not wake fully. And then came the voice. The captain, steady at first, then breaking, as if the weight of the words crushed him even as he spoke them. "Ladies and gentlemen, if there is any fighter pilot on board, please make yourself known immediately." Silence. Shock. The cabin froze. His words struck like lightning in a clear sky. Fighter pilot? Why? Eyes widened, mouths parted. Panic spread like wildfire through the rows. Someone gasped. "What's happening?" Another clutched the armrest, knuckles white. A man barked in fear. "We're going down, aren't we?" The tension thickened, a storm inside a storm. Naomi's eyes flew open. She sat still, her heartbeat slamming against her ribs. She knew. She could feel it in the bones, trained to sense danger in the air. Something catastrophic had happened in that cockpit. Something no ordinary pilot could fix. And she was the one the captain was begging for. But humiliation is a cruel enemy. It whispers at the worst times. It reminded her of the training ground where men laughed behind her back, saying she'd never make it. It reminded her of superiors who dismissed her suggestions, only to repeat them as their own minutes later. It reminded her of the countless times she had walked into meetings, into airports, into restaurants, only to be judged before she had even spoken a word. And as she looked around, watching passengers scanning the cabin, their desperate eyes never landed on her. They searched for a tall man, perhaps graying at the temples, strong-jawed, with the kind of face Hollywood paints as hero. They searched for anyone but her. The captain's voice cracked again, louder, panicked. "We have minutes. If there is a fighter pilot on board, we need you now." The plane jolted violently, throwing drinks to the floor, sending gasps and screams across the rows. A flight attendant stumbled into a seat. Oxygen masks rattled in their compartments. Naomi's pulse hammered. This was her moment. Her training screamed at her to act, but humiliation bound her like chains. If she stood, would they believe her? Or would they laugh, sneer, call her a liar in the face of death? A man muttered angrily as she shifted in her seat. "Stay put, lady. Don't cause more panic." His words sliced like a blade, but Naomi inhaled sharply and rose to her feet. The aisle seemed to stretch into infinity. A gauntlet of doubting eyes, scoffing whispers and mocking stares. Some passengers shook their heads, others rolled their eyes. A teenager snorted, muttering about attention seekers. Each step weighed heavy with humiliation, but her spine remained straight, her resolve unbroken. She reached the cockpit door. The attendant guarding it blinked in disbelief as Naomi pulled out her military ID. Her hands shook, not from fear of flying, but from fear of dismissal. The attendant's eyes widened, flicked to the trembling captain's voice still echoing overhead, and without a word, opened the door. Chaos. The cockpit was a storm of alarms, flashing red warnings, blaring signals. The co-pilot slumped unconscious, his headset dangling. The captain, pale and sweating, fought with the controls, his breaths ragged, his hands trembling. Naomi slid into the seat beside him with a precision born of years in the skies. Her voice cut clean through the noise, steady, commanding, unyielding. "I've got this." And in that moment, she wasn't seat 14 amperes. She wasn't the underestimated black woman passengers sneered at. She was Major Naomi Carter, fighter pilot, savior of skies. Her hands danced over the controls, recalibrating, adjusting, commanding the aircraft with the calm of someone who had stared death in the face before. Outside, winds battered the wings. The plane pitched, threatening to tear apart. Systems flickered dangerously close to failure. But Naomi's focus was a blade, sharp and unbreakable. In the cabin, passengers cried, prayed, held hands in terror. They had no idea that the woman they doubted was the one holding their lives in her grip. Every second stretched, every moment a knife's edge. Naomi's muscles burned, her lungs heaved, but her hands never faltered. 40 minutes of war against the sky. 40 minutes of fighting chaos with discipline, fear with focus, humiliation with unshakable skill. And then, at last, the descent. The wheels screeched against the tarmac, rubber burning, metal straining, but holding. The plane slowed, steadied, stopped. Silence. Then an eruption of applause, of sobs, of relief, flooding the cabin like sunlight after storm. Naomi sat back, trembling, drenched in sweat, her heart still pounding. She had done it. She had saved them. When she stepped out of the cockpit, the cabin fell quiet. All eyes turned to her. The same man who sneered before could not meet her gaze. Shame reddened his face. A child clapped softly, and then louder, until the sound spread, row by row, into thunderous applause. Not for the captain, not for luck, for her, for Naomi. She nodded, her lips curved in the faintest smile. Pride and pain coexisted in her chest. Pride that she had once again proven herself. Pain that it had taken terror in the skies for them to finally see her. That day, at 32,000 feet, Naomi Carter reminded the world that true strength, true courage, true skill knows no stereotype, no color, no gender. Heroes are not always who you expect. Sometimes, the person you underestimate is the one who saves your life. So the next time you look at someone and judge them by their skin, their gender, their simplicity, remember this flight. Remember Naomi Carter. And as Naomi Carter walked off that plane, the same people who once doubted her now stared in silence, ashamed that they never saw the hero right in front of them. She saved every soul on that flight. But the greatest lesson she left behind was this: never underestimate the quiet, never dismiss the overlooked, and never forget that the person you doubt today might be the only one strong enough to save your life tomorrow. This story doesn't end here. It lives inside every one of us who has been humiliated, underestimated, and doubted, yet still rose when the world least expected it. And if you're watching this right now, I want you to carry Naomi's fight in your heart. Because tomorrow, it might be your turn to prove them all wrong. So don't just leave, be part of this journey. Hit that subscribe button right now. Turn on the bell so you never miss a story. And tell me in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Because the next story I have for you, it's even deeper, even more shocking. And trust me, you won't want to miss it.